Hi everyone, yasas que kalos to another episode of Dimitra's Dishes. Today I'm going to teach you how to make Koulourakia, but the vegan version. Koulourakia are classic Greek butter cookies that are usually made around Easter time, but around here we make them all year long because they're so good. They're perfect for dipping in coffee. And I'm teaching you how to make them without butter, without eggs, just using really good light olive oil to make them. They're going to be so good. They're so easy to make. Let's get started. Okay, so making this cookie batter is so simple. What we're going to begin with is the dry ingredients, so that way I don't have to switch to another whisk. In this bowl over here, I have 4 cups or 530 grams of all-purpose flour. I'll add 2 teaspoons of baking powder and whisk that all up. Now I'll set it aside and we're going to move on with the wet ingredients. So in this big mixing bowl here, I'll add 1.5 cups of very light olive oil. This is not the good quality cold pressed extra virgin olive oil because that will be too olivey tasting. This is a cookie, you want it to be nice and light. So I like to go with the light olive oil. You can use your favorite vegetable oil instead if you prefer. Next, I'll add 1 cup of granulated sugar, 3 teaspoons of pure vanilla extract, 1 cup of orange juice. You can use fresh or from the store, whatever you have. And I'll also add half a teaspoon of baking soda to this. Whisk everything all together until it's nice and smooth. Then we're going to start adding the flour mixture a little bit at a time, whisking together so that way each batch is incorporated. It's going to look like almost like a pancake batter, but a little bit thicker. It does need to get thicker than this and drier, so I'll have some flour on hand and I'll just continue to add it until the mixture is no longer sticky and it forms a dough. The best way to add it is with your hands and just knead it as you go. Just try to not overwork the dough, but once it's at this consistency, when it's no longer sticky and it's not falling apart, that's how you know your dough is ready. But before you use it, it is a good idea to let it rest for a little bit. So cover it with a clean kitchen towel and just set it aside for 15 minutes. Okay, in order to shape the koulourakia, we're going to first portion out the dough. So each ball of dough should weigh about 35 grams. It's about the size of a walnut. If you have a scale, just take it out and use it at this time. It's going to make your life so easy and it's going to help you keep them all uniform in size. If you don't, then it's fine. Then we're going to take one at a time, and the dough is, as you work with it, by the time you get to the last ones, there's going to be oil everywhere. These do release lots of oil, but don't worry about it. They're going to be so delicious. Squeeze the dough together to kind of help it hold its shape, and then roll it out into a rod that's between 6 to 8 inches long. If it starts to break on you, then it needs to be squeezed together a little bit more. And just do that, just bunch it back up and just squeeze it together and then roll it out again. Then I like to fold it in half like this and twist it so that way it looks like a braid or like a little rope. You can do so many different shapes with this. An S shape is also really common. So once you form it out into a rod, put it on a baking tray that's lined with parchment paper, and then you could form it into an S. You could also do it into little circles. Traditionally, these are sprinkled on the top with sesame seeds, but my kids don't like sesame, so I'm going to leave these plain. They're still going to be nice and beautiful to look at and still very delicious. But if you do want sesame on top, you can brush them with a little bit of simple syrup and then sprinkle the sesame on top. That'll add some more color and will also help the sesame seeds stick. It's up to you, but I'm leaving them without sesame seeds. And the twists are my favorite, so I'm going to make more twists than I am any other shape. They're all looking so good. These are unfortunately not cookies that kids are going to be able to help you with just because of how finicky they are with the releasing a lot of oil. They kind of break a lot, especially when you get towards the end. You might need a tiny bit more flour. I didn't add any flour. I just dealt with the oil problem because I wanted them to be nice and tender. The more flour you add to these cookies, the drier and tougher they become. So I'm going to leave it up to you how you're going to make them. Okay, so once you assemble the cookies and they're on parchment lined baking trays, the oven should be preheated to 350 degrees Fahrenheit. And these are going to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes or until they're nice and golden. If you're baking more than one tray at a time, make sure to rotate them so that way they bake evenly. Once they're golden around the edges, they're ready. Take them out of the oven and let them sit at room temperature so that way they can cool down. Make some coffee in the meantime, call some friends over. I usually have freezer instructions for you for baked goods, but these cookies do not freeze well. but they do last long at room temperature, so it works out either way. And again, you saw how easy they are to make. The only thing is, if you follow me on my stories on Instagram, you'll see that I tried to make a gluten-free and vegan version of this, and I used King Arthur's 1-to-1 flour, the gluten-free flour, and it did not work at all. I did get a lot of messages from you guys with tips on how to make it work with gluten-free flour by adding some psyllium husk or some other ideas that you guys sent me. I didn't have time to test it out because they just came out so bad and I was so disappointed I didn't even feel like trying it. But if you do have tips on how to make them gluten-free, I'd love to hear it in the comments and maybe I'll give them a try one day. But these cookies as is taste so good. They are so flavorful because I put lots of vanilla in there, some orange. I stayed away from the cinnamon because I have lots of cinnamon in my Koulourakia recipe, which is almost identical to this minus the warm spices. If you do love that, you can put the warm spices in here, but I wanted to give more of the characteristic Koulourakia flavor to them, and that's why I left the cinnamon out, but they're so good. You can add some lemon zest to these too if you'd like and leave the orange out. Time for the taste test, and I'll take one of the little twists. Oh my goodness. So good. I love butter. I can eat butter on everything, but I don't miss the butter in these. There's so much flavor in them. They have the same texture as a regular Koulourakia does. And like I said, they're super easy to make. They'll keep fresh in a cookie jar or in an airtight container at room temperature for a week or two. They've never lasted that long for me to test the freshness, but they don't go bad because they don't have dairy in them. I hope you guys give this recipe a try. The measurements are on the website, dimitrasdishes.com. Let me know what you guys think and post your recipe requests down below. Thank you so much for spending time with me today. I'll see you all next time. Yes, us.